there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Now in this video I just wanted to quickly explain before we start the couple of different masking items that I use. The first one is the Gina K Masking Magic. Now I keep all of my scraps there in the back. I make sure I don't waste anything, but this one is the one that I use if I'm using wet media. So I'm going to be doing any watercoloring, adding any water to it, spritzing water, then I will generally use the Masking Magic. Otherwise, there is the mint tape. This comes in a 1 inch and a 4 inch here, which is really handy as well. This is a low tack tape with the perfect amount of low tack. I did a whole lot of research. I purchased a whole lot of the low tack tapes on the market, and this one by far worked the best for me. Now this tape is very reusable, so I'm able to reuse this again and again if I'm just using this for ink blending and things, masking with ink blending. Today I'm using it to create a frame around the outside, and I'm going to use some candied apple, spiced marmalade and mustard seed, three basically just an orange, a yellow and a red, to get a really nice blend on top of these for my first background. Now I used the mint tape to create myself a frame, and I can kind of see through the mint tape enough to know that I am eyeballing a roughly even frame around the outside. In fact, you can pretty much see it here on film as well. You can see that there's a nice little frame that has been taken off. However, if you don't want to do any of that, you don't want to do the masking, then you could just cut down this panel and then pop it up on your final card base, and honestly you're going to get a pretty similar look. So I just really liked the kind of one layer look here for this one, but in the end you can definitely do many options. I just felt like it today. As I say, with card making, I feel like there is pretty much always an alternative. There are definitely alternatives that we can do that produce similar results using different ideas. Now for this one, I just did a really nice, smooth, simple blend. 3 colors, all nice and relatively even, and then I'm able to pick this up off my desk and pop it to the side, let it dry a little bit. Then I have some chipped sapphire in Vintage Photo. This is a dark blue and a brown. For ink blending, I like using the domed blender foams. These work the best for me. I've definitely had the best results. And if you want to kind of cheat a little bit and help get best results, I find that the Tim Holtz watercolor paper that I use for watercoloring also gives me the best blend. If I'm kind of relying on having a really smooth, gorgeous blend, then I will use the Tim Holtz watercolor paper, the smooth side of it, for that as well. Now here I'm just showing you, it doesn't really matter if your blend is not perfect. This is not perfect by any means, but I promise by the end of it, I think this one comes out being my favorite. Now, here is where I kind of tricked myself, because I did add a couple of spritzes of water. I do need to be really, really careful because, as I said, this mint tape, I've shown it in the past, it doesn't hold up well to lots and lots of wet liquid. It's just probably not what it's meant for, and that's why I have the other one in my stash. So I do make sure to bring out the heat gun and try and dry this as quick as I can to get rid of that moisture before it has a chance to seep underneath. Now, as I was talking about alternatives earlier to create a really similar look where you can kind of get the frame but without having to use the masking paper at all, and this gives you kind of that one layer frame. As I said, there are a lot of alternatives that I'm not going to show you in today's video, but I'm just showing you a couple of them. And one that I have had in my stash for so long and have been meaning to use is the Simon Hurley, I think it's like a stamping foam, I can't remember the name that he uses. And then I'm going to use 3 colors and show you a couple of ways you can use this. Rustic Wilderness, Mowed Lawn and Twisted Citron. These are Distress Oxides. I am just going to pop a little bit of the Rustic Wilderness up the top. This is a pretty dark color, so I didn't want too much. And then I'm just going to kind of gently rub my ink pads across it. I am trying not to go one into the other. I don't want to blend the colors together. And I am going to give this a spritz of water, so that is going to help things kind of mix in and really blend those colors together without me blending them with the ink pads, because I don't want to contaminate one with the other. So then I have the Twisted Citron down the bottom and a couple of little spritzes of water, about 4. The little spritzer that I have doesn't really give big spritzes, and this foam is sized perfectly to kind of fit there in the middle and give a really nice frame on A2 or 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch cards. Now this is what I got, and as I said, with these we don't have to have perfect blending at all. Something else, because there is so much ink on there, I thought that I would spray this again and pop it down and see what results I got. I haven't had a really good play with this. It's, as I said, it's been sitting here, and actually a friend of mine, Jocelyn, she bought a 2-pack and sent me one. She is a very good friend and very, very kind. She's always thinking of me, and she knew I wanted to try these out, and one is going to last us a long time each. So she sent one down to me, and I have been meaning to use it, really wanting to use it, and it's been staring at me. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of playing with this in the near future as well. Now, I really like these drips that I got, and so I was trying to dry them. This is a case of when you kind of fiddle too much with the background, which I feel like, raise your hand if you are guilty of doing this a little bit too. It kind of, once the drips had dried, they weren't as prominent, and so they'd kind of faded. So I started playing a little bit, dipping and dipping. But honestly, this background is perfect, and I will use it for something because backgrounds can be used no matter what. I feel like I have done a lot of videos on this on my channel. Now here is what the foam is actually really good for. So you can heat this up with a heat tool or a heat gun, and just make sure that you do this part kind of quickly, press it down really hard onto any textured surface, and this is going to pick up the texture of whatever you have pressed it into. In this case, I used an embossing folder, and as I said, I am totally experimenting with this. I haven't used it a whole lot, and I'm looking forward to using it. I'm giving it a light spritz of water, popping this down, and I really love that it kind of gives you that instant frame. So I popped this down once, and you can see I put quite a lot of ink on there, down onto the foam, and so I pressed it down again, hoping to get a little bit better transfer. I wasn't sure how much pressure I should apply. I didn't want anything kind of squishing out the sides, but it doesn't really do that. So then I decided I could probably get another print, and I really like that. The texture from the embossing folder that shows up is amazing. And then one last time I just added a little bit more water and printed it again, and again I got a really nice print. So I feel like there's lots more ink on there. I could probably do this again. But when you want to change up your design, you just pop your heat gun on it again, and you can see that the pattern disappears really quickly, and you are set to go again. So it's really, really fun tool. I'm looking forward to using it a little bit. But anyway, moving on to what I'm actually going to do with these backgrounds, and I want to layer up different embossing colors. I feel like this just gives it a little bit more than the standard kind of silhouette embossing or one color. So I have this stamp set here, this one from Elena Crafts, and a lot of these are actually joint together. Now, when I purchase a stamp set, I'm going to make it my own, and that often involves cutting them up. I feel like if that's the way that I'm going to get the most use out of them, then that's okay. And these are mine, so I can cut them, and I do definitely cut this stamp apart a lot. I cut it almost into individual kind of sprigs and grasses and flowers, just so that I can use them all in lots and lots of different ways, rather than stamping kind of the same pattern time and time again. If I really want them back together, I can definitely kind of place them back, and they would go onto a stamp block or onto a stamping platform door really easily, and I could fit them back in like a puzzle. It wouldn't be hard at all, but I really like it this way. I feel like I get a lot of use out of them individually. So I'm making sure that I kept that frame on from the low tack tape. I don't want to take that off. I want to make sure that all of my stamping and everything is going to create those really clean edges that I can take off in a minute. So first of all, I'm lining up the first layer of what I want to stamp in one color. Now for these first ones, I'm going to be using the Versamark Sticky Embossing Ink. This is a really good quality embossing ink, worth investing in, and definitely worth getting the re-ink kit if you choose to invest in it. I'm going to stamp down nice and evenly, and the first layer that I want to do, I'm actually going to do in some gold embossing powder. Now I do not keep a whole range of embossing powders on hand. If I want to stamp a colour, then I generally stamp it in some pigment ink, the VersaFine Clears, and then I would put a clear embossing powder over top of that. But for these ones, I wanted to do gold, blacks, whites, and I did have the silver out. And that is all that I keep as a range of embossing powders in my little stash. Now once I have done the gold, I have heat set that so that it is all melted. Then I'm going to pop this larger one on. I am going to angle the little stem just a little bit. Use my anti-static powder bag. I did use that the first time, but I think I accidentally edited that out. It's really important to keep using this time and time again. And then this time I'm going to put the white over top. just to see how that looks. And I like this image that we're building, but it's still a little bit too bare for my liking. I think it needs just a little bit more. These cards are going to be very clean and simple, and I think a really large thick frame kind of helps with that kind of clean and simpleness of the cards, I guess. This, again, today's video is one of those videos where I'm sure that you have pretty much everything in your stash where you are able to create cards very similar to this. You can take any backgrounds. If you have really light backgrounds, then obviously the colors are all going to work on these. If you have really dark backgrounds, colors like gold and white embossing powders are also going to show really well on those. So you can pretty much use any backgrounds that you already have as well. And as I said, if you didn't want to do the masking, you can just cut them down and that will give them a nice little border onto your card bases. Lots and lots of different options. However, I will link all of the supplies that I've used in today's video. I will try and find pretty much everything. If it's not down there, then it's discontinued or I can't find a link for it. But sometimes to show all of those little links, you need to click the show more button. Sometimes it's a little grey arrow down the bottom right hand side of your screen, and if you click that, then you should be able to see all of the links and a few other bits and pieces that I have there. I have links to my Facebook page, which is a great place that you might like to, if you're inspired by some of these cards or any videos that I have made, then you can share your versions and your creations of these cards over on my Facebook page. It's just a great way that I can see photos and videos of what you've created. So there is a link to that in the description box below this video. It is also called Come Crafting with Natasha on Facebook. We have an amazing group of people over there. So lucky. Very, very supportive and just, yeah, really amazing. So there's a link to that. There's also a link to a few other things. I have my P.O Box in case you guys want to send me mail. I absolutely love clearing my P.O Box and finding some cards, and it makes me really, really happy and amazes me that they come from all over. I had one from Austria this week. That was so amazing. Thank you so much. I also had another one from Connecticut. I'm just really, really lucky. As I said, it puts a really big smile on my face. The other thing that puts a smile on my face is when you pull away this masking tape and there is no pilling or pulling, or I'm not worried about it ripping, and those beautiful clean edges with no ink underneath them. This does make me really happy to look at this. Surprisingly happy. It is all those little things in card making and crafting that keep us happy, and these are absolutely gorgeous. I did some with the black embossing. Now if I want to do black, I always stamp with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is a pigment ink, and it means that I'm able to emboss it, and I just use clear embossing over top of that one. I don't own any black embossing powder, and I don't really like using black embossing powder because those little speckles will go everywhere, and no matter how hard I try, I pretty much can't get a clean emboss with those, so I just stay away from them. So this time I find that if I use the pigment ink pad, the black pigment, it's going to work perfectly with the clear, and I get just as clean impression, just as dark and really gorgeous. So I have laid these onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card bases. I have the Heartfelt Sentiments here from Altenew. This is an old favorite of mine. As I said, I'm not sure if these are still available anymore, but you can use what's in your stash. Just use what you have. And I'm going to stamp these out a couple of times. I like to stamp them out a few times because knowing me, A, if I just stamp one, I will ruin it. And B, it's lovely to have some more in your stash just sitting there ready to go. That one I stamped really, really crooked. So I think I put it on my acrylic block a little bit crooked. So I stamped out a couple more. My long bladed scissors are absolutely perfect for this. I have been doing this more and more rather than getting down my trimmer, and I just use the long blade to guide a really nice, clean, smooth, long edge, and that means I don't have to get out anything else to cut down my sentiments. And I just chose a couple that were going to be for cards that I needed this week, and then deciding whereabouts I wanted to pop them on my card, whether I wanted it to go straight across the middle. I do like that, but I felt like it cut the card directly in half, so I just wanted to probably not have it do that exactly. So then once I have cut down my sentiments, I didn't pop them up or anything. I did pop the card front up on some foam, so that already had some dimension to it, and I just wanted these to be nice and flat, so I'm just sticking these on with some multi-medium and the matte finish that I pop into these glue bottles, and that finishes off today's embossing cards using different colors. Thank you so much for joining me. I really, really, really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!